I'm Ashley Milne-Tite, and this is The Venture, a branded podcast from Virgin Atlantic and GIMLET Creative. This week and next, we're doing something a little different. Today, we're going to play a panel discussion for you that happened earlier this year in Seattle. The panel was hosted by Virgin Atlantic to celebrate the launch of their new direct route from Seattle to London. It features Virgin Group founder Richard Branson, along with some Seattle entrepreneurs.
I'd like to introduce Mimi Jung, who's the morning anchor for King 5 News, who'll be leading us today.
Well, hi, everybody. It is great to see you here today for Virgin Atlantic's Business is an Adventure event. This city, my hometown, is a powerhouse for innovation, for progressive thinking, and for entrepreneurship. It's that same entrepreneurial spirit that is in the DNA of Virgin Atlantic. And that is why we have brought here today some of Seattle's most inspiring visionaries, as they're going to share some stories and advice. And now, without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Sir Richard Branson. Good to see you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Welcome to Seattle.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you here. I love the story about how Virgin Atlantic started. And it started as, a challenger brand like so many other companies with Virgin. When you look at it, it's like, really, you thought you could go up against British Airways and all of these other huge companies?
I was in Puerto Rico. I'd been off on a business trip for 3 weeks. I was 29 years old, and it was 6 p.m, and American Airlines decided that they didn't have enough people in their plane and told us all to come back the next morning. So I go to the back of the airport and I hire a plane, and I borrow a blackboard and I write American Airlines as a joke, and $39 one way, and I go to all the people who bumped and I sell out our first airline.
Well, you've never been afraid to go against the big guys, clearly, and you've had a lot of fun. On that note, shall we bring out the rest of the panel?
No, I'm enjoying it.
I
know. You've got you all to myself.
I know. We can sit here all day.
Bring
Fortunately for us, we have 3 other amazing individuals with some incredible stories. Let's bring out Nadia Shurabora, Jonathan Spizzato, and Chase Jarvis. So Nadia, sitting to the right of Richard, is the founder and CEO of Pointer, a retail revolutionary. Nadia has extensive retail and technology experience. Clearly, she brought the shoes. She served on the leadership team at Amazon before launching her own venture, Pointer, and setting her sights on the future of retail. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you.
Jonathan is a serial entrepreneur. That sounds sexy.
It does.
An investor in many startups.
Can you tell my wife that?
Exactly. She might have a different opinion.
That's right.
Jonathan is chairman and co-founder of GeekWire.com, one of the tech's top news sites, and CEO of PicMonkey, one of the world's most fun and popular photo editing tools. Great to have you. And the snazziest dresser on the panel.
And I think what we need to do is take Jonathan's look and my shoes.
Yes.
Put it on him, and it will be really the snazziest.
You know, I know a photo editor that can do that.
You do you? That would be awesome. So maybe by the end of the event, you can somehow get her shoes on. That would be a feat.
Thank you.
And we have Chase Jarvis as well. Chase is widely recognized as one of the most influential photographers of the last 20 years. He's currently focused on working as the founder and CEO of Creative Live, the world's largest live streaming education company. We were talking about business as an adventure, and you guys talk about an adventure that you've all been on. I'd love to start with you, Nadia. How would you describe business as an adventure for you?
To me, it's lots and lots and lots of downs where you're totally desperate and you're crying every night and you're taking out pizza boxes and you're dreaming about a glamorous life, and instead of that you're folding jeans behind the counter, and so it's seeing men in their underwear and just...
It sounds awful.
It sounds awful.
I mean, so home. I don't want to encourage anyone to start a business. It sounds like a nightmare.
But then there are moments up, and this is my usual Tuesday. I drink champagne, I sit next to Sir Richard Branson, which makes me look completely normal.
I would say that's
what
the
are you trying
highlight.
to say?
Jonathan, what about you?
You know, I do think of business as an adventure, which is why this panel really resonated with me. I think the fun of it is to learn something new so that you can apply it forward. And you know, I turned 50 last week, and yeah, it's so. Oh, fantastic! You don't have to clap for that. Actually, please don't clap for that. But no, my point is that you realize
21 girls.
you're too kind. You're too kind. So, but the point of that is that I think it's important to take stock of one's life and what you're choosing to spend time on, because time is so precious. So when you think about how much of your business life consumes you, man, it better be fulfilling. You better be enriched by learning something new or getting a chance to work with really awesome people. So for me, it certainly is an adventure. And Nadia speaks very candidly about some of the trials and tribulations and the pain, but also I like to also look for the fun too. So,
What about you, Chase? How would you describe business as an adventure for you?
Well, I think life is an adventure right now. Times are uncertain. I think the idea that you're going to go to college and then you're going to graduate and get a good job, and that was the sort of the traditional view of life or your pursuit of a career. Never before have there been so many opportunities to learn from others, to, as you guys said, spend time around amazing people, build community because of the internet. And it's up to us to seize this opportunity. So to throw ourselves into adventure, and I think there's no one better to, I guess, model after than Sir Richard. To me, that's the adventure that is upon us now, and it's an amazing time.
Chase, you talked about the fact that going the traditional route, going to college, doing this kind of the straight and narrow, is the more riskier route. But
Yep.
I'm sure that you are all here because you're successful and you chose the riskier route. What was it that you did that was not traditional that got you to where you are today?
Well, I think we're sold a narrative. And I mean, I came lower middle class family, white, suburban. I feel like I had most of the advantages that you could. And I still felt really challenged to fly in the face of convention, to bail on professional soccer, drop out of medical school, quit a PhD in philosophy to become a photographer. And yeah, if you're a parent out there, you're going like, oh no. And I mean,
are you giving your parents their money back?
I think that's something that we need to recognize as a culture, that we're steering people towards this narrative that used to be safe and used to be perceived as what you want for your child. I think you should really reconsider. And I don't want us all to be shining examples of success, because I think if you asked any of us, after this event when we're off stage, we could talk to you about all the hardships, about the pizza boxes, about the failures,
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome. What am I doing up here? Ultimately, I think that if we can change the narrative and help people understand that we really can take charge of our future, to me, that's what the next generation is about.
I think one of the most inspiring things to hear from a panelist like you is to hear those stories of challenge.
Oh, how much time you got?
Only a half an hour.
There's a very, very thin dividing line between success and failure. And especially when you start a business maybe without any financial backing. So, and for years, for most of us, you're battling just to stay the right side of that dividing line. And then, of course, some people don't manage to stay the right side, and their companies fail. They will have had the most incredible education, in the process of fighting to survive. And the key is then, pick yourself up, brush yourself down, and start again. And it's easier to say, but it's just absolutely critical. And the next time round, you will have, you'll be that much stronger. You would have had the best education anyone could have given you. When
you have doubts and fears, because I'm sure you have, what keeps you putting one foot in front of the other and saying, I believe in this, or I'm going to keep going?
I just love to learn. So I see life as one long university education that I never had. And I'm learning all the time. I'm learning about the airline industry. I'm learning about the train industry. I'm learning about the mobile phone industry. I'm learning about climate change. I'm learning about the space industry. I'm learning about all these different things that we're jumping into. I'm learning about conflict resolution issues, and it's just the most fascinating course I could have ever gone on. And And I don't want to waste the position I find myself in.
You guys have your hats and hands in every different thing. It's not just one thing. How do you keep the multiple plates spinning and not go crazy? And when do you know to hone in on one thing?
Just have great people around you, and that's that's all the business is having wonderful motivated people who believe 100% in what you're doing, and giving them the freedom to make mistakes, the freedom to make good things, not second guessing them, and then if you get that right, you can have 300 companies, because you've just got these wonderful people around the world doing wonderful things.
Chase, I would love to ask you about your. You can tell me if this is correct, but probably your biggest professional failure.
Okay.
Last year, I was heartbroken when I read your blog post about what happened to your app, which I had and used, the best camera app, and how do you grow from that? How do you pick yourself up the ground, stop beating yourself up over a lost opportunity?
Short backstory, I created the first iPhone app that shared photos to social networks, which ended up being a pretty big deal, I guess. We were #1 in the App Store App of the Year. And we were, a year and a half out in front of all of the other photo sharing apps. Instagram was basically a lift and stamp copy of Best Camera. They're very good. You've seen them do the same thing with Snapchat. And I had been in a relationship with the developer. That relationship went sideways. And without going into the weeds, the lawsuit that I got in bogged us down. I walked away from never work again money and just had to let it sort of rot on the vine. That was the single most important thing in shaping grit, which I think it's a characteristic that is not talked about enough in entrepreneurship. B, as Sir Richard said, dusting yourself off and getting up again. And maybe C, the most important things that have gone into creating and navigating venture capital and leadership and all this stuff with Creative Live. Those are all lessons that I learned in that failure. Without those things, you're nothing. It's only the down moments that really help amplify the up ones.
Well, thank you so much for your inspiring stories. We could sit here and talk all day. You guys are fascinating people.
You're not going to kick us off stage.
We're not going to kick you off stage. In fact, we're going to bring some more folks on
that's good.
to allow them to get a chance to ask you specific questions about their companies and businesses and get direct advice. How's that? So we are first going to introduce Nishant Singh, who's the CEO of Peach. The company launched in 2014. Peach makes sure that you get lunch from your favorite restaurants, dropped off at your office every day, no lines, no tips, no delivery fees. Available in Seattle, San Diego, Boston, and Washington. Welcome, Nishant.
So when the first time I flew in a Virgin flight, Sir Richard, I was blown away, partially because it was very pretty. The colors, the smiles on the faces. How do you make people fall in love with your products? And also, how do you make people fall in love with you?
I look in their eyes. Let's take an airline as an example. I mean, we all have the same aeroplanes. We buy them from either Boeing or Airbus. But you have a blank sheet of paper, and 12 years ago we decided to come into America with a new airline because we just thought the airlines that were currently existed in the States were really badly run, and there was nothing joyous about traveling on them. And you just got to get every single little detail right. So when you walk onto the plane, you've got to have people going, wow. So every little thing just must sparkle. And fortunately, most of our rivals, the bigger airlines, just do. I suspect that most of the chief executives, they get on private planes. They don't even fly on their airlines very much, and therefore they don't get that kind of feedback. So getting the general picture, but then the detail is really important. So that and then you've got something exceptional.
Cool, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And my next question is, and I think this is for the whole panel. As you grow your business, you're going to add more and more people, and you start thinking about, okay, now I'm driven by profit. I want to make $1 billion or whatever that is. How do you keep your employees happy at that time when there are a lot of them, and you want to make your company more of a people-friendly company or employee-friendly company than a profit-friendly company?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this one. I do think it's really important to listen to your employees and understand what motivates them and what fulfills them. And again, as I said earlier, I think that you have to be very values-driven. So at one of my companies, PicMonkey, we boast a 50-50 male-female balance, and that's something that really resonates with people and actually becomes a magnet draw for a lot of employees, men and women. I do think that it's important to be as transparent as possible. Transparency and vulnerability are really key attributes that not only are they kind of expected, but people deeply appreciate it when a leader can be vulnerable and say on occasion, you know what, right now, today, I don't know the answer to that question, but you know what, with your help, we'll figure it out.
What about you, Chase?
People, products, profit, in that order. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, whether that's at home or work. There's so many things in this world that you can't choose. You might as well choose good people.
If I were in your shoes, people are great, product great, love great. You're doing lunches. You need to run your trucks 20 hours a day. So think beyond lunches to keep your trucks busy all the time and keep your people busy all the time. And then the profit will come.
Nishan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tamarian Rogers. She's a board member on Ada Developers Academy. Founded in 2013, Ada Developers Academy is an intensive software developer training school for women. It combines 6 months of classroom instruction in cutting-edge web technologies with a 5-month internship at Puget Sound area tech companies. Welcome.
Thank you. So with Ada, we've had tremendous success. The demand is there. We have more than 500 applicants to get into a 48-seat cohort. That number is growing, so the demand is very high. What we like to know is, as a nonprofit organization, what are some suggestions you have to help us grow?
With a lot of startups or endeavors, it's like you have way more hype than substance. You guys have way more substance than hype, and I think you guys could do more PR, proactive, like toot your horn, and I think that can do wonders for a nonprofit like yours, and I'll help you with that.
Okay, we'll take you up on that.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
One other one.
Okay.
One of the challenges that we have with the women that graduate from the program is, of course, they come from this environment where they're with other women, other non-binary gender people, and this is a great environment to learn. But once they step into the tech workplace, it's not as inclusive, it's not as supportive. And so the question is, how can we help to really make a drastic impact on transforming the culture of tech industry to be more inclusive?
Yeah. I'm actually writing a book on the subject. I've been reluctant to blurt that out because there are a lot of other things to talk about. But one of the first things that I talk about, and I deliberately say it in a controversial way, which is that men must lead the change. And what I mean by that is that men must change first. And the reason is precisely because right now it's mostly men that are controlling who has a seat at the boardroom or who's in a C-suite or who's hiring on that interview loop and hiring candidates. So I think that's one of the key things that's got to change. The second thing is that leadership just simply has to commit, and it has to come from the very, very top. And I think that it's important to get people to acknowledge that there's a problem in the first place. If you look at the stats, it's pretty abysmal for the year 2017. Again, believe in your mission. I think you're doing great things, and I would take all the Ada graduates I can if I could. So.
All right, we will remember that.
Tamarian, thank you.
Yeah.
And last we have Ziad Ismail, Chief Product Officer of Convoy. Founded in 2015, Convoy is the world's largest network of trucks with guaranteed capacity and real-time GPS tracking on all shipments. Welcome.
Hello, panelists. So there's this interesting challenge that we have at Convoy. Faster than we expected, we have some of the largest brands, kind of consumer packaged goods companies, have started adopting our platform. That's great in many ways, but the thing we have a lot of conversations about is like, how do we balance expanding quickly to meet the needs of our customers versus staying focused and doing a small set of things really well?
I'm not sure whether it's when we had record companies and they got over, say, 100 people in a building, I would call in the deputy managing director, the deputy sales manager, the deputy marketing manager, and say, you're now the managing director, the marketing manager, the sales manager of a new company. And we ended up setting up 25 different record companies around the country. We became the largest independent record company in the world. So maybe you try to sort of set up small units around the country to manage it, and don't try to do it all from one bigger and bigger and bigger central company where everybody loses touch with each other, and people can't really take credit for their successes or ownership of their failures.
Okay, thank you. My second question is about values. Like, I've worked at big companies and also at small companies, and the thing that I find distinctive is that small companies, like most of them at least have the sense of mission, and the values of the founder kind of completely resonate because the company is so small. Most companies, that as they grow bigger, it tends to hollow out and tends to become like more soulless. As we think about growing our company, like what can you do to prevent that hollowing out of the mission and values?
You have to put energy into it. If you think that the values are just going to perpetuate on their own, Creative Live once had a growth spurt, went from 6 to 90 people in just under 18 months. And you have someone who's only been there for a month hiring someone, and it's through no fault of the process that values get lost. I stand up in front of the company and talk about our core values at literally every single meeting. And it's sort of like the thing, if you turn your back on something, it's probably not going to grow in the way that you want it to. And if you can get the values instilled in the humans, not just yourself, because the values, they start at the top, but they exist everywhere. So what can you do? It's not just about talking about it, it's about living them. What can you do to instill those at every level of the company by recognizing people, by making decisions based on it, and not just having them be that thing on the wall? I think you're maybe the best person to give advice in this case.
Well, first of all, I feel so sorry for you. Growing so fast and having all those growth problems must be really, really hurting you as an entrepreneur. With all those challenges, Dosh, I don't know.
Do you want me to try
I think Sir Richard gave a perfect answer. Keep it small, and thank God every day for you growing so fast. And try to break your teams into small ones so they have a chance to compete, and be ready to change, because one day you grow fast and the next day you need to figure out what.
And be willing. I think you also must be willing to delegate yourself. I mean, I'm a great believer that entrepreneurs should very early on in their business put themselves out of business. I mean, like basically. What you should be doing is having the time to find somebody who's better than you to run the day-to-day running of your business, and then that person should be, getting the people who are working for the various different divisions of your company to find people who are better than them to run the day-to-day running of all their divisions. So you're freed up to, think about the bigger picture, be a true entrepreneur and push forward into new areas, knowing that if you get run over tomorrow, the day-to-day running is working fine. You can also spend a bit more time looking after yourself, your family, your body, other things, and not just burn out. But I think companies that do that, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs are not willing to do that. Everybody's happier as a result, and you'll definitely be happier. And I think the companies will flourish more as a result.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we're going to have time for one question, either from Twitter or Facebook. And this person asks, I'd like to make a difference in the world, but I'm not sure where to get started. What's your advice for those who want to make a change for good? Any of you have an answer for that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Scratch your own itch.
Scratch your own itch.
Think about Richard's founding story. It was a problem that he or someone he's close to, that he knows that problem really well. If you're chasing random market opportunities, when shit gets hard, and it will, you need to have the energy, the stamina, the grit, some of those other characteristics that you've heard us talk about on stage to push through that stuff. And if it's something that you care deeply about, if you can solve something that's meaningful to you instead of a random opportunity, I think that you've got the leverage where others might not.
Yeah, I really love that. And I would add that it's absolutely okay to give yourself permission to not know for a while. That, I know, speaking for myself, I didn't pop out of the womb knowing that this is how I'm going to dent the universe. So I think it's okay to let it find you and have a sense of authenticity about it. You may not be itchy when you are a young person thinking about the world, and you may have other priorities. Maybe it's about just, hey, I'm going to make enough money to buy my first house. But as you develop in life and your life becomes more nuanced and complex, and you see more and you observe and understand the world better, those itches might develop, and then it finds you.
What's your itch?
I find one thing which drives me nuts, and then I go and try to fix it. Just find one thing which drives you nuts.
One thing that drives you
Perfect.
nuts. Sir Richard, Nadia, Jonathan, Chase, thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you.
Warm round of applause for them.
The Venture is a co-production of Virgin Atlantic, Gimlet Creative, and Filio and Partners. Learn more about the show at virginatlantic.com/The Venture. And if you haven't listened to the first 6 episodes of this series, go back and check them out. We profile pioneering businesses like The Onion and the team behind the Real World TV show. We were produced this week by Ben Kiebrick. We were mixed by Emma Munger and Zach Schmidt. Our theme song was composed by Bobby Lord and Matthew Ball. Next week on The Venture, we head to Los Angeles and hear from leaders running some of the most talked about startups, including Tinder and WeWork.
Millennials are very focused on not just what they're doing, but why they're doing it. What is the purpose behind what they're doing? And if you can't explain on a global level to your workforce why their job is important and why it's impacting the world, then you're going to fail. And I think companies need to evolve to do a better job of that.
That's next week on The Venture. I'm Ashley Milne-Tite. Thanks for listening.